in honor of the announcement that Ben Affleck will be playing Batman, I thought this was the perfect time to give you the book review I've been meaning to give you for a while. I want you to check out Becoming Batman by E. Paul Zare. The subtitle, The Possibility of a Superhero. Let's see, just some background on it. It's Johns Hopkins University Press, copyright 2008, so it is a fairly recent book. And the author is a neurobiologist and a skilled martial artist. He's done, I want to say, if I remember correctly, I don't want to sit here flipping through it, but the professor of neuroscience and kinesiology up in Canada, Vancouver, or Victoria rather, British Columbia. Biomedical research scholar, and holds black belt in both empty hand and armed martial arts. They didn't really go into it, but I believe he's primarily a Japanese style practitioner. So he's a martial artist and a scientist, and of course, obviously a fan of the comics. And the book is not a how-to guide of how to become Batman. That would be ridiculous. What it is an analysis of what it would take to become Batman, and if it's feasible or plausible in the end to pursue such a journey, minus the murder of your parents trauma kind of thing. I mean, that's totally a random factor, not something that you would want to inflict upon yourself, hopefully. It's, like I said, it's just a book review, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail and debate here. It's a good book, it's not a great book. It is something that I would suggest you read as somebody who already has a grounded foundation in physical training, both combative and strength and conditioning. And I'll tell you why in a second. His analysis of the data, his listing of data of what it would take to live the lifestyle, the stresses that Batman would undergo, the psychology of it, the data is illuminating and is beautifully laid out. It's easy to understand. The pieces are there. Where I have issue is some of his conclusions, I think, are just a little bit off-center and really go to illustrate, despite his experience, his limited knowledge, as all of us have limited knowledge. My cat's in heat, sorry. His limited knowledge of, breadth of knowledge really is what it is, in regards to strength and conditioning training and the greater world of martial arts outside of his experience. Most martial artists who are long-term martial artists have kind of an idea of the world of martial arts, but have only a cursory at best knowledge of what some of the more popular arts are about, and don't have a lot of experience in those ideas. There are certainly people who have trained in many arts and have a better knowledge, and there are certainly people who have trained in one art and have no knowledge of anything else. So it's a law of averages and all. But the two things I want to address and bring this in, you have to understand that his conclusion on strength and conditioning training is of the simplest, basest, first-year college student idea. It's inefficient training, and for somebody living the life, a double life like Batman, who would have to exist purely on polyphasic sleep, on who would be existing on functionally life hacking and meta learning and meta analysis of things. This is somebody who who obviously has higher than average intellect and capability to analyze and deduce things and whatnot. But you have to understand that he would also, despite having superior basis, only be able to fit so much into one day, being able to fit so much energy and effort into one day's worth of activity and learning and scheduling recovery time. Thing is, this would apply to his training as well, and doing these simple week splits that this guy's talking about in the book is not something that that would be feasible or functional. And I'm not saying Batman would be doing CrossFit training or SEAL training or something like that either. For the lifestyle he lives, he needs something that is going to be, for lack of a better term, recovery based, something that will allow him to gain maximum amount of physical efficacy with minimal passive recovery time. And that being the case, you're going to be talking a whole different lifestyle of training, and with the training methods out there, he probably would end up kind of biohacking training methods based on physiological data and personal tests and scans and stuff. And the guy's got literally billions of dollars at his disposal to just kind of test and experiment and play and hire the best trainers. But you would see training probably more akin to the performance training outlined in something, say, like Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Body, or perhaps something more like Scott Sonnen's TAC-Fit, or any of the various sports training regimens, whatnot, that where these guys are the in-season regimen, where these guys are just maintaining and minorly building while they're having to deal with these high-stress activities. Because Batman doesn't have the time or energy necessary to be able to just sit back and passively recover. His recovery has to be active at its lowest point. The other side of the martial arts, of course, the big question, can anybody really study 127 martial arts in a lifetime? The answer is, in depth, no, not possible. I mean, there are people who have been studying one art for 40 years and are still going deeper. But the nice thing is that wouldn't be necessary in the first place. And while he suggests one specific path, really the obvious path, and I don't necessarily disagree with it, I think there are multiple paths, and he would obviously, I think, be looking into modern military tactics and paramilitary stealth tactics and whatnot. Quite honestly, hand-to-hand combat wouldn't be that high on his list. He would be seeking to engage people by surprise as a predator, not in this honorable single dueling combat, which makes a big difference on how you would train. He would not be spending his time in a karate dojo unless, of course, he just wanted to. So that's the idea. It's a good book. It is a good book. It's just not great. Please, if you're going to pick it up, just understand that there is discrepancy in conclusions, but the data itself is solid and is yours to interpret. And if you want to try to become Batman, go for it. I guarantee you'll be better than Ben Affleck. Once again, Becoming Batman, The Possibility of a Superhero by E. Paul Zare. Talk to you later. Good journey.